When I flipped through the program, the team, that is the Africa we want, the role of the young ones, the young people, then I told myself, yes, indeed, if we really want to know the role of the young people, then we should be devoid of rhetorics and speak and say it as it is. In fact, the Africa we want, we will really get there if we know where we are today, because it's very, very important that we know where we are. And I can tell you that where we are today, I do not think that the youth even knows where we are today, and then whether they even appreciate where we are today. What I can say is that comparatively, the youths could do some sort of comparison between livelihood in Africa and then the West. But I can tell you that the Africa we see ourselves today is engulfed with a couple of issues. In fact, leadership, number one. Cultural issues, I can tell you. I always tell myself that I'm fortunate, even though I have gone through a rigorous process as a young man, heading a faculty or a school where I was educated, have supervising some of my lecturers who taught me. Then I could see myself as a fortunate one who have been given the opportunity to showcase the strength in me. But I can tell you, that is not a story in other places. I always tell myself that after 18 years, you are not a future leader. So the issue of telling yourself that you are future leaders, sorry. The Africa we want, if you want to wait till you are 40 years, which is what we think that life begins at 40, that is what the Africa we have today, then you are deceiving yourself. At age 18, you are a leader, and then take up the mantle. Then, over the years, we also know that there are several attempts by our leaders, I'm talking about Africa we have today, to synchronize and liberate the continent of several oppressions. But I can tell you that leadership to a large extent is failing the continent. We have been able to liberate the freedom that we aspire for. But the question is, have we liberated our minds of the economic slavery we find ourselves in? Today, it is quite difficult to even trade among Africans. It's expensive to even call a colleague in Nigeria than in the US. I ask these questions. Why should I spend about ×2 of whatever I have to spend on a call to US than in Nigeria? In Ghana alone, it's imperative to know that it takes me about 12 hours to the northern part of Ghana, but 6 or 7 hours to Lagos. But trading becomes a problem. We have not liberated ourselves of the economic slavery. And it is not by chance, it's not by mistake. With a few studies I have done, it seems we are getting it wrong. Okay? Sorry, please give me some few minutes as a chairperson so that I can set the agenda. Yes, I can set the agenda. Today, have we asked ourselves why the African continent is suffering when it comes to even education? You are so happy to have yourself educated out there. in the West. But I can tell you, I have met those who have been educated here and those who were educated there. And I can say that there's this level of indoctrination by Western education. And very soon, they are coming closer to our various countries to take over our education. And it is so because we have not accepted that leadership, governance goes with ideologies. I wonder if we have come out with ideologies. The Americans have their ideologies. The Chinese have their ideologies. The British have their ideologies. The Americans have permanent interests. They have no permanent friends. The Chinese are winning the war without fighting because they work. Their ideology is to work on our brains. They have changed our taste with cheap products. So automatically that ideology is working. I wonder if Africa has won. Do you have any ideology? At a time we cannot even work and operate among ourselves. Today most of our civil society groups are agents of the West. Sometimes when I listen to them, they have information that the average Ghanaian doesn't have. And listen to them very well. The civil society organizations, they pursue the interests of the Western companies. This is the Africa we find ourselves in. We have been engulfed with corruption. This is the Africa we find ourselves. Please, where we have gotten to, in the next few years, we would not be able to even say we own our continent. That is my fear. By then, I might be too old, but I don't know about you. So this afternoon is an opportunity for us to tell our African leaders. I know we are live in several countries. Let's take this opportunity to tell our leaders, the people, that look, we have become conscious of ourselves and knowing very well the Africa we find ourselves in today. We want a proper and a better Africa, so that in 2063, the agenda we have set before us, we will be able to realize all that. So I want to entreat all of you. I'll be here with you. I will take some of the comments and we will share our sentiment to the entire continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That is the Dean, School of Graduate Studies, Dr. Kweku Mauto. Thank you so much for setting the agenda for us. And I know my audience, they are so much eager to listen to our panelists as well. And so we want to go straight into the discussions once again. The Africa we want, the role of young people. And trust me, one of the key things that we cannot do away with has to do with leadership. And so the first thing that we want to look at is that, do we have the set crop of leaders who would be able to edge us on into the Africa we want? If we don't, what is missing, what is lacking, that young people, as we are also growing up, we must be able to position ourselves, learn or unlearn, to be able to achieve the Africa we want. And I will start with Razak.
Okay, thank you very much for this question. Like I stated earlier, when it comes to leadership, one of the problems we face as a continent is the fact that the young people are bad from, being leaders, especially when it comes to politics. All right. For instance, I would like to use Ghana for an example. If you read the Constitution of Ghana, it says that until you are 40 years or more, you cannot become a president. I remember when Ibrahim Mo made the joke that he doesn't know why in Africa only people above 60 or 70 years end up becoming president, and he doesn't even know if they are leading us to the grave. But I mean, it is the realistic, problem we are faced with. Now, what we have to do as a continent is to make sure that equal opportunities are given to young people. There are some people who are very young but very competent and are, willing to do the work even far better than old people can do. And that aside, if we realize that young people are not given much opportunity, certain times it's because we haven't stepped away from the sort of politics we are faced here in Africa with, like where religion and then ethnicity becomes a very critical factor when people are electing leaders. It's all over in a lot of African countries. That is why in almost every election in every African country, you see, in most cases, clashes between, different tribes, different religions. And then from time to time, most of the wars are not just cultural and religious, but are mostly political. Moving on, you also realize that in most African countries, we still have leaders, I wouldn't like to call dictators, but people who have been, presidents for several years. And certain times, if the fellow is no longer president, but it's either the son or the brother or the wife or relative that becomes president, then it's as if all the knowledge in the world belongs to their family. So only people from their families can occupy these positions. It's very problematic. I believe that moving on, if you are going to build a better Africa, then it's very important young people are given the chance. Certain times when you see leaders taking decisions for the country's future or for the continent's future, it's sad that you go there and you only see men with gray hair. And then we are talking about 100 years. They will not even be around in 100 years. But these are the people making decisions for us in the next 50 years to come. And it's very sad. So I believe that if you are going to go anywhere at all, then it's time some of these constitutions are amended. And moving on to aside that, it's also time that we look at politics differently, so that we don't look at it as something that has got a lot to do with religion and ethnicity. We should be looking at people who are competent enough to lead us and people who really deserve to be in there. I believe if we are able to do some of these things, then we'll be able to develop Africa to where it should be. Thank you very much.
Okay, now Angel, don't you think that let's really get the issues clear? Is it a matter of giving young people the opportunity? Because I know a lot of young people have been given the opportunity and they have not lived up to expectations, just as the older people we always chastise. What are the issues? I know even in Ghana, for instance, in the past administration, there were young people who were given the opportunity, but at the end of the day, we went on them that they never lived up to expectation. Is it a matter of giving young people just the opportunity because we think we must be there? Or there is something that we must offer that we are not offering when we are given such opportunities?
Yes, Sam, our wise man said that a child will not necessarily listen to their elder, but they will definitely imitate them. So as leaders, as young leaders, sometimes we do have a shortage of role models. We don't have people who are making very good statements. Because in my country, we are battling a lot of corruption, and if you're in the system, you're definitely bound to the corners of being corrupt. Because even if you're not, you still owe something to someone at the end of the day. Because maybe you bribed your voters, you need to recap some of the money that you used to campaign. So as young people, as young leaders, we lack role models. Like if I became president of my country right now, I can imagine the kind of cartels I would have to deal with every day. Because sometimes you're president, you don't know what as a president you're going through, because there are people who feel that they have an obligation to the state resources, and that these are the people who drag us down. And if we don't have the wisdom and the experience to deal with such people, it can be difficult in leadership. So as young leaders, we lack that wisdom that we need to be in leadership. We may really badmouth the older generation and all that, but we also need them for guidance and counseling, because we are not everything in ourselves. We cannot compete with experience. And what we say, what a young man can see at the top of a building, an old man will see while seated on a stool. That one, we like that so much, and it is very true, and we must accept that to a certain extent. We need mentors. We need to accept to be students. We need to keep learning, because that is where we fail at the end of the day.
All right, Eric, do we have the kind of leadership for Africa that we want? And what kind of leaders do we need to achieve the Africa we want?
Sam, I would want to start off with a comment made by Doc that the youth are not the future leaders. We are actually the leaders of now. You see, somewhere in France, a 39-year-old Emmanuel Macron gets elected as president, and we are here in Africa hailing them. But just flip the coin and come to Africa. Take the same 39-year-old boy or girl, young man I should say, and I wouldn't even say for presidency, but for member of parliament and you hear chanting choruses of, oh, the youth are getting into politics because they want to chop money. You said that in the previous administration, some young people were given the opportunity and perhaps they messed up. I think same can be said for the older folks. They don't all get to perform. And we equally have some young people performing. How do you tell me that a 25-year-old person is qualified enough to vote in an election, but that same 25-year-old guy is not competent or qualified enough to be elected in that same election? So clearly, I think moving forward, for sure we wouldn't have all the youth qualified and competent for offices, but we should continue to push them into positions of leadership. Martin Luther King Jr. said something, that we cannot influence a table we don't have a seat at. So if it's in parliament, cabinet, and at all levels of decision making, and we don't have the youth represented, clearly our perspectives are missing. And that gets to, go against us in many ways of our development. So I think that moving forward, we should continue to encourage the youth and give them more opportunities. For sure, some wouldn't perform, some would perform, and as we continue on that path, I think we'll be able to make headway. The argument is often made that we're not well prepared for leadership positions and all that, but I think that is just a case of giving the dog a bad name so you could hang it. To demonize we the youth that we are not qualified enough to push us aside so they could perpetuate their stay in power. Are you telling me that across Africa we haven't, and I think it was said that the average age of African presidents is 63 years? That is terrible. Are you telling me that we don't have young guys who will be able to deliver perhaps even better than these older folks? Clearly we do. So I think the young people should be given the opportunity to steer the affairs of their countries and all levels of decision making.
All right, now let me stay with you for some time. Is it a matter of the young people are there and they are not given the opportunity, or they do not exist? And I want us to get it so clear, because sometimes we just dance around the same thing, that young people must be given the opportunity. But then trust me, are they well prepared? Are they well equipped? Do we have them already there? Or do we have people who have identified potentials in them, and when they are given the opportunity, they will be able to live up to expectation? I'm not saying we should have them already there, but do you think we have people who we can trust, even as young people, to be given that opportunity of leadership?
I tell you, we do. And we have young people always on the go, fighting and pushing for these opportunities. Here in Ghana now, we have, I think, perhaps the youngest minister we've ever had, the Honorable Kwesi Nkrumah, and he's delivering excellently. And even if I'm to be drawn into some sort of comparison between him and former ministers of information, I think he's doing creditably well comparatively. And so the young people are there, and maybe let me also use this opportunity to appeal to the youth that we continue to build our capacities. It's not always just about making chance. We need the opportunity, but let's continue to build our capacities in all respects, be it in ICT, in politics, in every other area, so that when the chance is given to us, we'll be able to deliver, and that will serve as a basis for giving more opportunities to the youth.
All right. Pamela, do you have anything to add?
Thank you very much. I think I'd have to agree with each and every one of the panelists that has spoken here. Our issue is that in part we have leadership that is failing us, and in part we have leadership that is doing extremely well. So the issue comes down to politics, okay, where the decisions that we make or the choices that we make are based on sentiment. I think Rashad mentioned it, that you have a situation. Do you think that we'll be able to choose a good leader if I'm going to the polls and whoever I'm going to vote for, I'm going to vote for the person because this person is tall, or this person belongs to my tribe, or this person belongs to my political party, even though I don't think the person is good enough? Okay, so it comes down to politics. What do we think? We make our choices based on sentiment. And I think it also comes down from a culture plays a part, where we have young people making arguments that are not based on facts but are based on hearsay. Okay, my parents believe in this political party. This is what my tribe believes in, and so I'm also going to do the same things. So in part, we have leadership that are failing us, and we have ones that are doing extremely well. But what we will have to do is we are appealing to all youth that they read, they learn. Okay, they challenge whoever is in authority. If they are the ones sitting back and looking at the leaders, then they should challenge them. Okay, and this will only come if you read. And we are talking about Agenda 2063, and I can tell you for a fact that less than 2% of those students of UPSA don't know about Agenda 2063. Speak about the SDGs, and they do, because we have incorporated the SDGs into our curriculum, but our leaders are not speaking to us about Agenda 2063. And so yes, we are appealing to them that they read and they learn a lot.
All right. Are we there yet in terms of young leadership for Africa? Are you on the right path?
Sure. Before I comment or respond to yours, let me just take this opportunity to comment on your initial question. That is whether we have the right set of leadership to take us there in the next 50 years. I always say that you cannot solve a problem when you deal with the effect and you ignore the causes. When we are talking of leadership, as a student of politics and philosophy, I cast my mind back. How do we get our leaders as a country? Which institutions supply our leadership? If you clearly look at our constitution, the party politics, or I mean a political party, when captures power, supplies about 99% of the country's leadership. And so right from politics to even academia, we have appointment all over from the party that won power. And so when we talk of leadership, all the comments that are coming, we can fix it to one side. What is the purpose of the party when they are contesting for elections? Yes, they want to win power. If you make reference to aspiration 6, an Africa whose development is people-driven, do the political parties have agenda that are based on people-driveness? If they don't, then we have a problem. We are simply dealing with the effect every day, and the party will keep supplying us the leadership they deem fit. My co-panelists made reference to Honorable Kojo Nkrumah for today performing credibly. He is performing because he was smart. He left his journalism, contested for elections, and he won. And so now his talent is being seen globally because he took the risk. And so when we are talking of whether our leadership is taking us there, we should look at the parties. If they are people driven, we will get there. If they are not, then we will continuously sit here, comment on it every day, and the same problem. Because here we are. Just recently in Ghana, we had a governing council dissolved because government had 2 appointees. And as at now, I have not even checked headlines whether the students have returned or not. That is what we are talking about. And we have a 50-year plan. When party is thinking of 4 years, you have a 50-year plan. They want to win. So even if you are looking for jobs, you are looking for where to showcase your talent, well, you may say, I should not wait for someone until someone gives me the opportunity. But I'm telling you, you cannot fly into flying. You need to learn how to crawl. You walk. You jump. Then one day you may fly. And so I cannot wake up and after my university education, I become a minister of state. For you to see that I can communicate. That's not what we are saying. The environment is not well structured. And that goes back clearly to how we select our leaders. Even on campus, you may be as competent and might have read all the books of Aristotle. Take yourself from any election and you complete school without any impact. And so let's open up. How do we select our leaders? And when we are able to attend to that, once people are driven, they have the people at heart. We move as a continent. It's simple. Unless you have a different plan, you have a different agenda. Until then, we will be at where we are. So the Africa we want, let's monitor our leaders and how we even bring them in the first place. If they are from a good source, we have a good path to follow. Thank you.
All right. So in other words, we must, as young people, put ourselves in the right path.
Exactly.
Training, grooming ourselves into ensuring that when we are given the opportunity tomorrow, we do not disappoint the continent. Thank you so much. We want to go into the aspirations, and that is where we'll be able to get the role of the young people much more specifically. Now, the first aspiration talks about the fact that we want to see a continent or an Africa that is prosperous based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. And you rightly made a statement we rule the country based on our political ideologies and whatever. We do not have a sustainable plan for the continent. We don't have a sustainable plan for our countries, and so we keep on alternating policies here and there. How do we ensure inclusive growth and sustainable development as young people? And I think I'll start with Angel.
Yes, Sam. Inclusive growth and sustainable development comes out very widely, and in my fourth aspiration of having an economically stable continent. And what I see in this continent is that we are too much independent. We are really keeping to ourselves, because there's a lot of strength in collaboration. There's a lot of strength in integration, and I believe that is why we are having the Association of African Universities. But we are not taking advantage of the fact that we can collaborate and come together and be able to build something in Africa. Because look at our airline industry, and we keep talking about this because even the best of economists have said that if Africa could have just one airline flying across Africa, we could fly on the economies of scale, and we would be able to interact very effectively. Trade would build up, and we would also be able to propel Pan-Africanism. So having road networks, this is something that we should look into. And even in our universities, being able to just integrate our universities, at least every other year there should be new international universities supported by a pool of universities coming together, so that we be able to enrich our culture. Because there's a lot in Kenya that is not here, and there's a lot that is here that is not in Kenya. So there's a lot of strength in collaboration, there's a lot of strength in integration. So that is one resource as Africans we have not really tapped into. And if we did that, we would be able to see the kind of strength we would gain in unity.
Okay, thank you. It's quite unfortunate that if you look at Africa, and then, for instance, an example, the population of Africa and then the GDP of Africa, you will realize that it doesn't even match at all. Moving on, if you also look at our, blue economy, that is the ocean economy, which is like 3 times the land mass. Moving on, you realize that in that aspect too, we are lacking. Okay, so I'm assuming that we want to do anything about this. Moving on, it's very important that the shipping industry, for instance, with the blue economy, the shipping industry, the fishing industry, the marine, and then the technology that is needed to support, the blue economy we have in Africa. That is one thing we should be looking at. And also we should be looking at, like what I said earlier, the fact that the population of Africa should be something that should help Africa progress to where we want it to go to. So that assuming we have, labor or quality human resource, we should be able to, develop our countries. Like this Indian philosopher rightfully said that if you want to develop your country, you should be looking at developing your people and then your human resources. All right, you have to look at it from that point. I believe that if we are going to move on, education is very key, especially early childhood education. There are so many places in Africa, even in Ghana, you'll go and then like maybe say 10 villages combined share just a school, and even the school you go there is no furniture. They have to just sit on the bare floor and study. There are some villages that people have to walk for several kilometers to attend school. So if you are going to develop Africa, some of these fundamental things are what we should be addressing, because there is no developed country anywhere in the world called a developed country where you will go and then some of these things are still challenges to them, if nothing at all, at least not basic education. There are even countries in the world where right from basic school to university is absolutely free. Countries like Norway, countries like Sweden, like Finland, Germany, where you go and you don't even have to pay a peso, where healthcare is very accessible, very affordable, and even in some instances free. Okay, so I believe that if you are going to move forward as a country, these are some of the things we should be looking at. As we progress and then we deal with some of these issues, in the next 45 years, there shouldn't be some of these challenges at all. And even if there is, it should be very, very, very low. Thank you.
All right. Now, Eric, let me get to you. Now, what role do you think education and skill-based training will play in ensuring that we get the African reform? Your education is key. Skill-based training is key. What role do you think these things will play?
Sam, So as we speak today, 14th November 2018, it is an established fact that Africa controls more than 50% of the world's resources. And so, and clearly you would agree that that is just on paper. In practice, we don't feel the impact. We don't feel the impact. And so if we will be able to tap and exploit our resources to benefit our economies, then clearly we need to be able to train ourselves. And I'm aware there are local content bills in some African countries, especially Ghana here. But anytime, and that law requires the top management level, I think about 30% should be Ghanaians, and then much more for the lower ranks. But anytime that is brought up, we are told that the Ghanaians don't qualify. So that clearly brings us to getting ourselves trained to be able to, take up this, because the resources we are mining, I mean, a greater chunk gets to benefit the outside countries because they have the skills and everything to get to exploit it for us. So moving forward, I think that is one area we should be looking at. But I think that is one thing we have consistently said as a country, that yes, technical and vocational and practical education is the best. Yet our actions betray that. Even our technical universities are being turned into mainstream universities now. The Accra Polytechnics and all that. And even if you go to the senior high school level, there's free SHS now. It's free for everyone. And that has become a major disincentive to those who genuinely want to get into technical and vocational and other practical education. And so maybe I would have to use this opportunity to appeal to governments of Africa, especially the Ghanaian government, to extend possibly the free education to technical, vocational and other practical forms of education, so that our capacities in the vocational technical arena could be well built to tap into our resources for the development of Africa.
Thank you very much. I want to go to the second aspiration and then move on right after that, where we are talking about a continent that is politically united and based on ideas of Pan-Africanism and then the vision of Africa's renaissance. And some of these things have been talked about over and over again. How do you think, as young people, what role do you think we can play into ensuring that we get to that point where Africa, the entire continent, is politically united, and that we have that kind of self-value and we believe in ourselves and we believe the fact that we are Africans and we are proud? Let me take it from you. No, Pamela, just tackle it first, okay. Then I'll go through.
Okay. I think we have an issue as the youth of Africa. What's happening is that we are concerned about ourselves. Okay, so the Ghanaian youth is concerned about Ghana. I'm not concerned about what's happening in any other country. So I had lectures this morning, and my lecturer was telling me about what happened in DRC, the war, and all, and we had no idea. And you'd notice that the whole mood in the class had changed. So I think what we can do as the youth of Africa is that, as I stated earlier, if we learn, if we read, if we challenge ourselves, we'll notice that the goals we set for ourselves, the way we push ourselves, go beyond who we are as a country and goes into, or pervade into what we are as a continent. And that once we are able to identify as Africans and we are proud of who we are as Africans, we don't look to other countries in the Western world and say, I wish we were like them. But we leverage on our strengths and are able to make our choices based on those strengths, and look at the weaknesses we have as a continent and see what can we do as as African youth. Okay, I like the fact that we're talking about sustainable development. Development that's not just about today, but has the next generation in mind. So whatever we are doing, we know we have the next generation in mind. And so I want to challenge, as I stated earlier, challenge the African youth that we have to go beyond ourselves. Our choices, our decisions should be based on who we are as Africans and not who we are as a Ghanaian or as Ghanaians. Yeah.
All right. Let me take your comment and then.
All right. Thank you very much. We are currently looking at an integrated continent that is politically united in the ideals of Pan-Africanism and the vision of Africa's renaissance. While thinking about it, I couldn't just ignore the first aspiration, and that was on prosperous Africa. That was based on inclusive growth and sustainable development, development that is relevant to today's society and also beneficial to the future generation. But the word prosperous is very important to me. When we are talking of prosperity here, we have first acknowledged the fact that we are poor. I don't know how you understand or how you define prosperity. It could be material, it could be mental. Maybe Africa is mentally poor and materially we are poor. If you are poor, then you cannot integrate. Because the mindset, if we look at right from the formation of the AAU after 1963, several years up till now, and Africa has today written that they want to integrate, and it's a 50-year aspiration, then you are not ready to integrate. Look at the time that you liberated yourself. You fought the violent clashes. And today we are here. And as at now, you meet 10,000 times. Anytime you meet, it has to do with the long speeches and how we flaunt our cars, presidential jet. We don't treat. We give the usual speeches. We commend ourselves for various lackadaisical decisions that we have made. Then at the end of the day, we go and sit home. Mentally, the prosperity is not there. Young people, how do you tell me that I should pick up the spirit of Pan-Africanism when every day you go back and form cartels during political campaigns? It won't work. The role we have to play as young people is to see that perhaps the current leadership has failed us. We have to pick up the mantle of Pan-Africanism. The ideal that I am because we are. You don't have to separate yourself. Even as at now, when the white refer to us accidentally that Africa is a state, the last time my co-panelist said it, that if you are aspiring to be one, why is it that when they refer to Africa as a United States of Africa, erroneously you get upset? That is where you have to issue statement that, hey, we are not together as you think, but you aspire to be together. And you know the strength that lies in unity. And as at now, since our Pan-Africanists, our forefathers left it, it has become a rhetoric. We are not Pan-Africanists because we were African way. We are not Pan-Africanists because we all want to maintain a certain political ideology. We are Pan-Africanists because we want to develop together. We want to move in the same direction. Once you're able to move in the same direction, when you attend any meeting, you can also negotiate to your advantage. Then your prosperity comes to bear.
All right. Thank you very much. Let me come to you, Eric. Yes, for the next aspiration, we are talking about an Africa whose development is people-driven. And this is the last comment that will come from the panel. And then we'll open it up to our dear audience to also share their views as well. We are talking about development that is people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for children. What do you make of that aspiration?
Sure, I will touch on a few and maybe yield the women part to our ladies on the platform. But we would agree that for sure our development needs to be people-driven, that is using the African for everything that we want to do. And as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said, that the African is capable of managing his own affairs. But I'm not too sure how that comes to play. If we have just a simple contract to construct a road, and we give that to the Chinese to come all the way to do that for us, are we by any way suggesting that we don't have competent contractors in town? And I think maybe just to pass a little comment on what we are discussing, it's been 55 years since those 32 African countries met in Addis Ababa to, you know, set this Pan-African dream in motion. And 55 years down the line, for sure they have been able to deliver on the first leg, that is liberating African countries from the shackles of colonialism and all that. The second leg, which is to integrate Africa, especially politically, that is what we're lacking at greatly. Last time I was listening to a debate between someone, an honorable member on the majority side and minority side of Ghana's parliament, and even when mention was made of cocoa, Ghana coming together with Cote d'Ivoire to form sort of a cartel or conglomerate to, you know, be able to even dictate the price of cocoa to the world, because as you know, we don't even get to dictate it. They dictate the price to us, we the producers. You know what the debate ended on? No, our cocoa is better than Cote d'Ivoire. Oh no, Cote d'Ivoire is better than that. So clearly, there's some sort of, I don't know whether antagonism or animosity even between us as Africans. So how do you expect us to even use our own people to push our development? So no wonder we continue to have the Chinese as they are on a massive agenda to sort of colonize Africa. And I don't know how that will go, but I think our leaders need to pay attention to us as the youth. We are continuing to build our capacities, and I'm sure that when given the opportunity, we as the youth can and will be able to, drive our own development process.
Thank you very much. Angel, quick one, and then Pamela, then we'll go to the floor for about 2 or 3 comments, and then we can close.
Yeah, Eric threw to us women and youth. I don't know why you did that. Anyway, I'm passionate about young women and young people in leadership, so I will have something to say about this. And I feel that right now, any young woman at this moment who is educated, who is focused and aggressive is definite for a bright future. Because at this time is when the world is opening up to women. At this time, the world is having more conversations about women and what women can contribute. And they are opening up to have you on the table, because we have really missed out a lot in the past 100 years of not voting, of not sitting on decision tables. That is something that is trying to open up right now. And as the world is doing that, what I can advise you young women and men in this room is to keep educating yourself and keep going the extra mile, as what we are all doing here. We have not made it. We are still on the same level and working hard. So what I believe that we can do is keep going the extra mile, because we have not lost it. If you're a young woman, if you're a man, you benefit once, but if you're a woman, you benefit twice, as a young woman and as youth. So this is something that we should not lose focus on. Let's keep investing in ourselves. And again, as what you see in this room, those who come to seek opportunities, I'm sure there are those students in the hostels watching movies right now. As a student, you have to go the extra mile. It's not just about studies there. You need to come to the table. You need to get yourself politically informed, because without that, you will not go anywhere, because that is the decision-making table. And back at home, we say that if you're not on the table, you are on the menu. So don't be on the menu, be on the table.
All right, absolutely right. Pamela?
Okay, speaking about women and our potential as African people, I think we've come a very long way as a continent with regards to empowering women. But the reason why we are not there yet is that we are looking at it from an all-female perspective, where largely we are failing to engage the men, or we are failing to engage other stakeholders. So you notice that we have women empowerment seminars or conferences, and the only people we have on the panel are women. Okay, what happens to the perspective of the men? What do they think? They are also very important to the pushing of women. Okay. And what I want to say or appeal to women is that I for one, don't support affirmative action. If you want us to be able to realize the potential that women have, give them the opportunity, or if you've educated us on the same level, don't say because you're a woman, it's limiting us. If you're saying because you're a woman, I'm going to give this to you, I'm going to make it easier for you, then when I get there, I wouldn't push myself to do as much as the other person would want to do. But if you are giving me the opportunity and you want me to fight for it just like a man would, then I'm going all the way. And so I, for one, I don't support affirmative action. But as I stated earlier, we are looking at it from an all-female perspective, and so we haven't realized the full potential of women yet, or we haven't been able to achieve this women empowerment we are talking about. So we are appealing to the men. Please, we need your help with this to be able to achieve the Africa we want. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will come back to you after the audience have shared their comments. If you were the chairperson of the African Union, what would you have done differently? Shall we have about 3? Just 3. I have a lot more hands on this note. I don't know who to call first, but I will give the first opportunity to a Sudanese, to the lady, and then, this is tough. Okay, Prof, please go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. Anyhow, that is a real great panel, but I have 2 points to talk about. One of the points which raised by the guy who is in the middle about the average rate of the African leaders, 63, which is very old, that's what he's saying. But you have to know that in Africa, all through history, we had the youngest leaders. But the problem, when they get in office, they don't step in. That is number one. Because of tribalism, because of regionalism, because of selfishness, because of many reasons. So this is not, it's not going to be a great issue. We have to know that all of us, this morning we were at Ghana University, and we went to ORID, which is the Office of Research, Innovation and Development. And I asked him a question. I said to him, I know that from the data which I have, that Ghana is almost exporting cocoa worth of $1 billion to Switzerland, and Switzerland is only what they are doing. They are exporting chocolates with $12 million. Can your research center, $12 million, 12 billion against 1 billion, 12 billion against 1 billion. Can your research center work on that to reverse this formula? So here I think for the young people, I think we have to increase the level of education. We have to support the research centers. We have to work hard in this area. But also for that point of African unity, I think the African unity has a problem, because some people, they think that patriotism is better than nationalism, and this is the problem. Unless we have lessons, and we have lessons about ethics, and we have crossed these borders. At the end, we won't reach Africa that which we want, Africa free of poverty, ignorance, and disease. Anyhow, that is a good panel, right, and I thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I'll take the young lady. The young lady. Yes. I'm looking for those who have not spoken today, and then, yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. And the theme or the agenda is the Africa we want, the role of young people. So as young people, I think we should always focus on the role. And a role is not an issue talked about, but then it is the action you take about the issue you've talked about. As one of the panel rightfully said, we should tackle the cause of the problem and leave the effects. If you tackle the cause, you realize that it solves or it even prevents the effect of the issue occurring. So I think as young people, we should focus on the action we'll take after we've brought all suggestions together. Even we could realize that even the older people, that we are not including them in the issue. Mostly they talk about some of these issues, but what happens? They sit on the issue, they do not act on it. So I think what we should do as young people is, after we've brought our suggestions, we should work on it, or we should act on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll take the last comment. I'll give it to you, and then we'll close.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. The Africa we want, the role of young people. Most often we do forget that we young people have the power. The people in power now, we elected them into office, and we have that same power to take them out of office. Now, we want to liberate ourselves. We want Africa where everybody is integrated. Now, I was listening to City FM some few weeks ago, and I heard that we are going to employ 1 man from Malaysia to come and redesign Accra. And I asked myself, what are the students of Kwame Nkrumah University doing? Don't we have students who are there to do this work? Then we go to Malaysia and bring someone to come and redesign Accra. Really, is this the role we want to go? Now, we've actually gone a line where if you are from this setting, you have to kowtow to that line. Now, this is what we have to do as young people. Let's take the bull by the horn. Let's show these leaders that we have the right. Okay, this is the Africa we want, and this is how we want to go by it. So I'm challenging every young person here that starting from today, anything we do, let us go to the Africa we want, and let's challenge ourselves to this same Africa we want. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'll take the young person. Yes. Let me be a bit biased. I'm taking the views of the young people. Just last two, and then we can close.
Thank you very much. My name is Hadi Kilson. First of all, I would state that the continent of Africa is populated highestly by young people. It means that in the next 20 years, we'll find a lot of people being maybe in the leadership of the continent. Now, the problem is that we have a lot of young people now who are battling with access to education, battling with unemployment, battling with poor healthcare, and battling with poverty. And these are the basic things, and until these things are solved, whatever it is we are fighting for, we cannot attain. Now, the theme is the Africa we want, and we are looking at the role of young people. I am happy that the panel is made up of young people, and we have our fathers and our leaders here listening to them. Now, I always say this, that our leaders have failed us, and we owe ourselves the duty of creating the Africa we want to see. And if there is anything good that can come to Africa, it is here, because we have the youth. John F. Kennedy said that a state where the youth are in a state of slumber cannot realize their full potential. So this is a wake-up call to the youth. So I'm calling our leaders to focus on giving us quality education, because if you want to create an Africa we want, to battle with the Western world, if you want to battle with China, then we have to equip ourselves in areas like technology, because we cannot have an Africa where a student studying IT will solve questions on paper. Because in China, we have kids producing machines that we benefit from, but then the people studying the same things are doing theory. That is not the Africa we want. And until we have a reconstruction in our education setting, there's nothing we can do.
All right, thank you very much. Let me come back to my panelists. If you were the African Union chair, what will you do? Finally, within 30 seconds, you should be able to finish. And it goes to everybody.
Thank you very much. If I was the chair of African Union, right, like this scholar Ali Mazri rightfully said, he said, first and foremost, if Africa is going to progress, then we will have to get one Africa. Africa has to be united. And if Africa is united, like my sister Angel said, every African country has a different resource, okay? Some countries are rich in uranium, some gold, some bauxite, cocoa, and then like Eric also rightfully said, Africa alone controls more than 50% of these resources. Now, if we have these possessions or these riches...
Thank you so much. All right, Angel?
Hey, okay. If I was the AAU chairperson, I would heavily invest in technology, because that is where our weakness lies. We may not be good in tourism and all. We are really down because of technology, because we need to own the factors of production. We need to improve on our production, because we will create employment. And that is how we can become independent as a continent.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Right, so as AU chair, and by virtue of the fact that Africa controls more than 50% of the world's resources, I think we would be able to get into more industrialization to better our product to final goods, so that we don't take them outside and that we're lacking greatly. And maybe at the risk of sounding repetitive, let me also, and I've recused myself from the AU chair now, I want to call on the system and the establishment to give the youth more opportunities, especially once in leadership making levels, because we can sit here, wax lyrical about the roles that we as young people can play, but if we are not involved, engaged, and we don't get to participate in decision making, then clearly I don't see how we are going to take over the running of our continent.
Thank you so much. Pamela?
As AU chair, I would invest heavily in quality education, not just in education, but quality education, where we have students focusing on what value they can add to the continent, and not just passing their grades.
Thank you so much. Finally, to
as AU chair, and not just any other chair in any continent, all my focus and effort to be channeled towards promoting education, quality one. When this is done, this agenda will be known everywhere, and we can all move together in one path.
Okay,
thank you.
Great. My message It's very simple. The older people have given the young people, or they are giving the young people the opportunity. If you're a young person here, develop yourself, groom yourself, identify the right opportunities, and the doors will be opened up to you. We'll go to our chair, who also has 30 seconds to wrap up, and at the end of the day, we'll say a goodbye to this session. Chair, 30 minutes, 30 seconds to wrap up, and I think we'll be done.
Sorry, Sam. Let me exercise my powers as a chair. 30 seconds will be too small for me. I have flagged a lot of issues here, which I think I need to comment on, especially the affirmative action. Please.
The chair, I can add 30 seconds to make it.
My good friend, if you knew the troubles that women went through, you hold on to the affirmative action. Yes, I know our women are here. I'm so particular with affirmative action, and I'll hold on to that. Please, let's not deceive ourselves. We do not control 50% of natural resources in the world. We have it on our land, but we have no control. So as the youth, we should look at how to control it. That should be the right word. We don't control it, because in accounting, if you have 99% shares in a company, and I have 1%, and with my 1%, I can remove and appoint majority of your board members, then with your 99%, you have no control. Now, please, sorry. You see, let me once again exercise my powers as a chairman. Sorry, Mr. Sam.
Go ahead.
Are the youth ready for leadership? I can tell you, yes and no. In fact, I have mixed response to this particular question. I'm a youth, and I started with a lot of colleagues. What it takes to get to the top, please, they are not rhetorics. Hard work, commitment. Today's youth, we are deceived by what we see on the net. It is not as rosy as you see on the net. I'm telling you, there's poverty in the state. The state, US, will not show the other side of their country. Please be committed. If you want to get to the top, you need to equip yourself with skills. And then grow on the skills, develop it to be competent. I can tell you, we are not there. Let's face the facts. We need to learn. And I want to say that there are so many opportunities for the youth in a part of the world, but the youth are not grabbing it. I can give you one classical example. In UPSA, we have opportunities for the youth. Sometimes they fail along the line. And for those of you who are here, as a leader and a youth, if I want to give you a leadership mantle, I test you, I put you through a trial. Some of you want to become deans, but you're not ready to even pack chairs for students. How many SRC presidents will move to a classroom to ensure the classroom is ready for your colleagues to come and learn? That is what we call responsibility and leadership, not just assuming the role. Please, the last one, you see, for this, let me say it, and I'm so passionate about it. The so-called liberation. Politically, we are not even liberated in Africa, because the continent has been declassified into subsets of slaves. Sorry to say that today in West Africa, I mentioned it this morning, in West Africa alone, we have the Francophones and the Anglophones. In the northern part of Africa, we have those who hold allegiance to the Arab land. Today, I wish I could even collaborate as a university, graduate school, with a university in Sudan. But I can tell you, get to a stage, is that university ready to even collaborate with you? They will prefer collaborating with an European university than some university in Ghana. We do not trust ourselves. It is time we need to liberate ourselves from that mental slavery. It is true. In fact, it is true. And for the last statement, please, sorry, bear with me, sorry. We need an Africa without boundary. And that's the only way we can liberalize our trade and economic activities. I wish I can trade with South Africa without obstacles. Even my neighbor here, Togo, is a problem. Let's break those protocols so that we can freely trade. And there are so many opportunities for us. You only have to open up, you only have to commit yourself, and you get it done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I know I've put you through a lot of trouble by giving you limited time, but thank you for your remark. Thank you so much, my distinguished panelists. It's been insightful, and I know you've put down a lot of notes. We'll pick them, and then during the synthesis, we'll add them, and then we'll come up with a good policy. Thank you so much for listening to us. My name is Kwesi.